Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's June 23rd, 2020, and today I thought I'd do another garden tour. Now, I did a garden tour just 1 week ago and about 12 days before that, and garden prep before that, and so on. And one of my goals with this series is just to share with you and a way for me to go back and see how things are going. Because I get so busy, it isn't until winter time that I have time to go back and really reflect. So what I thought I'd do is throw the helmet cam on and show you what we've got accomplished over this last week and how things have actually progressed, what's gone wrong and what has worked out well. So here we go. Okay, we're over here starting off in the western garden plot, and so first thing you may notice is we've got weed mats down in this garden area. I went through and weeded everything pretty carefully. Then Thea and I carefully weeded the cauliflower and the Acer Red Cabbage. We had a couple of cabbages that had their new growth looking abnormal, so I pulled those out and we took a few babies and replaced those. So right now we got a nice cool breeze. It's only 86 degrees right now, but it'll probably get up over 90 again today. We've had one serious drought for the last 7.5 weeks. We've gotten a total of 1.51 inches on this property. There's been lots of thunderstorms around, but they just haven't hit us, and hopefully we'll get one tonight. So here we have the Acer Red Cabbage here, looking pretty good. Some of the leaves look pretty rough. They're getting baked a little bit with this very hot weed mat that we put down. Same thing with the cauliflower. But there'll be much less work with the weed mats down, a lot less weeding. Still have some more weeding to do over there along the building where the where the lupine are planted. And so there's a couple of small lupine right here. There aren't too many weeds around. And so those are the Acer Red Cabbage and the cauliflower. And as you can see, we kept some seedlings, kept them over in the shade, kept them watered, and they're doing okay. The blueberries are doing pretty well, considering we have that hot weed mat up against them. When we install the weed mat, if you're interested, I'll post a video about it, but quite simply, we use the 5-layer weed mat, and we make sure that it's the underside, the insulated side, that actually touches the plants themselves. And we're in a high wind zone, so we use lots and lots of garden staples, but we hold down the drip tape with the weed mat over the top of it. So this system, it works pretty darn well. We lose less product when we use a really good weed mat with the undersurface 5 layers, so there's some insulation there, and it doesn't tend to burn the plants. When you put the weed mat on afterward, like we did here, these lower leaves will get damaged and burnt as a result of coming in contact or being in close proximity. You see this leaf curl right here. That's because it's sustained injury because of all the radiant heat coming up, because we aren't getting the overcast like we usually do. We usually don't get these temperatures or this much drought until, mid to end of July and August. Our ponds are all much lower. It's very concerning. So having a drip irrigation system in place has really paid off. These are the blue Hubbard squash. They're looking really good so far. Pretty happy with how they're doing. Here we have, these are the cantaloupe over on this side. And then down here we have the honeydew. Here we have the Scarlet red runner beans. A couple of flowers just getting ready to open up at this point. More of the Scarlet red runner beans. So one thing I would say, one issue that I have had is all of our Orbit timers are at least, I think, 3 years old. This one gave me This is a 2-station one with an extra extra water coming out here, so you can run 2 different extensions going out to 2 different plots in a garden area. And this one, when I set the manual timer for 10 minutes, it stayed on until the next day, which really taxed our water pressure. So I'll have to keep an eye on that and try and repeat that and see if the 10-minute does stop at 10 minutes. That's the first time I've seen that problem. In this garden with the drip tape that's here, I haven't had any issues with this garden, but I'll try to remember to mention it when we get over to the central garden over here. As you can see, the grass is really brown in the areas where there isn't much soil. It's just gravel in this area. Thank God that the clover, the white clover, has gotten up to where it has gotten. Some of it is still going to seed right now, so I'm happy about that, because I really love that clover. Let's go into the central garden. Now the raccoons have been coming in here each night, but they haven't done any significant damage. We've got more weed mats down. The corn, you could see, is making some progress, looking pretty good. Have to do some weeding because this is the area with the corn. I don't put the weed mats right up tight to the corn for the simple reason that their root systems start to attach to the weed mats if they're really tight to them, and then it can be a real pain to clean up at the end of the season. The San Marzano tomatoes are looking really good. Real happy with how they're doing. There are new flowers starting to open at this point. So all of these drip irrigation systems in this throughout the whole property just come on one time at nighttime. So we're trying to do it when it's cooler. It drips underneath the weed mat, and so the weed mat, other than, oh, there's a beautiful dragonfly. Other than the weed mat being great for suppressing weeds and helping with the life cycle of some of the pests that we have to deal with, keeping the pests from completing their life cycle under the surface, decreasing water evaporation as well. But there's times like this, like I'm standing on this weed mat, the sun's hitting it right now, and it is extremely hot. If you kneel down in this weed mat, you'll get burnt. I've had a couple of these lines, the ends blow off the termination point where you don't let the water go past the end of the drip tape, and I'm not sure why that is, but I end up cutting off the drip tape. If people are interested, I'll share a video just on problems that I've had and the solutions that I found for working with drip tape. The kingbirds and the flycatchers have done a really good job. The kingbirds really go after those cabbage moths. So we have fewer cabbage moths this year. Really good. The broccoli's looking good. These are the banana peppers right along in this area. They're looking good. And the broccoli we started late. The kale we started late. And these are the bell peppers right here, looking good. Kale's really coming up really well, considering these were just started, not even 4 weeks ago. Sweet potatoes, this is one of the beds where I blew off the end of the drip tape, so we'll end up seeing how that works out. And I've talked about using the cardboard with the weed mats in the past as well. So if you do have drip irrigation, one of the things I would say, every morning it's really important to go out and just walk through the garden, not just for pest management so that you can see what pests are coming up, what problems to anticipate, but also, do you have any problems with your irrigation? You don't want the plants to get bad. Get to a point where it's not reversible, they're not salvageable as a result of discovering a problem. So that's the central garden. Pretty darn happy with how things are looking there. Frustration dealing with the ends blowing off on the drip tape at time, but that's just part of using drip tape. Here we have the Scarlet Red Runner beans on both sides of this longer hoop. I really do like this hoop tunnel. It's one of my favorites. Another thing you can see is we've got the weed mats down in this garden as well. So this has worked out. We did lose some of the leeks, but I saved some over in our leaf mulch by the living fence, and so Thea came through yesterday and replaced probably close to 100 of the leeks, the small leeks that just didn't make it. I don't know if it's because of touching these extra weed mats that are here, if that's what caused it, and I probably should give them another irrigation soon, another shot of fluid. The eggplants here, the ones that are right here in the direct sun without having the benefit of the shade of the tree, really get beat up, and they aren't taking the radiant heat from the weed mat, as well as, see, if we get under the dappled shade here, even though they have some insects munching on them, these eggplants look a little bit better. Same with these eggplants here. These jalapeno peppers are looking pretty good. Happy with how they're doing. These are blue potatoes. So since the last time that last week, I've gone ahead and hilled it twice, and the way that I've hilled these potatoes, I did it yesterday and I did it just about a week ago, so right after the last video that I shot. I went and got some of the what I'm using for potting soil, which is broken down wood chips, some compost, and leaf mulch. And you can see there's still lots of sticks and stones in it, so I try and pull as many of those out as I can, but not too particular with it when I'm getting these guys covered up. And by next week, these things will be all shooting up full green, another foot above this. So pretty happy about that. So I'm pretty much indiscriminate about it. I just take it, my big shovelfuls, bring the tractor bucket right up over this fence right here, shovel the material right down on top of it, and leave it and forget it. I did go ahead and the asparagus that I started from seed I didn't harden it off like I should have. But I could see some of it starting to come back. Little bits of the asparagus starting to green up here. So maybe this fall I will have some to transplant over into the asparagus bed as well. The small fruit is starting to set here for the hardy kiwi. The flowers have started. Hopefully we'll get to some of those before the birds eat them all up. The dill's doing really well. Thea with all her dill recipes, lots of them. We still have some lettuce starting to bolt now with all these hot days. Pretty happy that it's done as well as it has. The sage really likes it here under this cool area. The thyme loves it in cardboard sheet mulching with thick layers of cardboard and really thick wood chips as well. So the thyme, I think we found what really works best for the thyme. I got to weed this area here. Let's go over into the rest of the eastern garden pot. The lupine over here, which I showed before, are all making their seed pods now. Just a few flowers left over in here. So we'll be gathering up some of the seed pods. We'll let a lot of them go to seed right there to reseed itself. Because of the drought, I'm not doing any mowing at all. All right, so since Thea did this when I wasn't involved in it, I think along in here we have all our butternuts, except at the end down here we have cucumbers. So right here we have some, so these are butternut. Not looking great. Cucumbers, they look pretty darn good. Here's some more spearmint coming from our side garden over there. And more cucumbers looking really good. And some more sage down here. I came through and did some weeding, the first rough weeding in between each one of the drip lines and here on this bed here. So the onions are doing pretty well. The chili peppers are doing pretty good. We got some more cauliflower here. Strawberries have been coming in like gangbusters. Thea can't keep up with it. You know, she has to work too, so that's a bit of an issue. But lots and lots of strawberries, so already have a few gallons of strawberries in the freezer. And are these jalapeno pepper? No, these, I can't remember if these, which peppers these actually are. They actually look like the banana peppers. I think that's what they are. They're the strawberry bed right over here. The kidney beans, doing pretty well in here in our old dilapidated wood raised bed. Over here we have some of the cantaloupe and some of the more of the honeydew as well. And on this side, the watermelon. So these are all doing pretty well considering how hot and dry things have been around here. Hopefully I'll make a little bit of a, this whole area was, our iris bed here was overtaken by hairy vetch, which you could still see quite a bit of. And stinging nettles, which you can see. Some ragweed, some dandelion. And this is all deep, it's compost with wood chips on top of it. And here we are, very similar things. So you can see we've got some plants going to flower, and this is the time to really, if you want to weed, if you really want to weed the hairy vetch, and I think probably the best time to do that is when they are going to flower before they start to set seed. Once they've gone to flower, a lot of the nitrogen goes into the flower and into the seed. But as a result, by pulling those up, and I'll try to make a video showing, and you can actually see how much I disturb my wood chips over there. They're all lumpy bumpy. But this was completely laden with hairy vetch. And so I've got to get rid of that. I'll make a video about that. The plants that we transplanted over here, the thyme and the sage, the irrigation, not the drip tape, the soaker hose isn't working so well in here, so I've hand watered it since we discovered that they weren't getting adequate water, and they seem to be doing okay so far. The best ones seem to be doing, thyme is partial shade, deep cardboard mulching, deep cardboard sheet mulching, and lots of wood chips. So that's an update on our garden plots. I'm pretty happy that we were able to get the weed mats down. Had some challenges with the orbit timer. Oh, one of my orbit timers that actually has 4 different stations. So you can water one area of the garden, another area of the garden, a third area, and a fourth area to come on sequentially. So I have one that comes on at 3 o'clock. It runs for about 45 minutes. Then the second one goes on for about 20 minutes, and then the third one goes on about 10 minutes, and those are both 3 years old, and I really take really good care of them at the end of the season. Run them through a cycle without water in there to make sure there's no water in there, so if the temperature gets below freezing, it isn't going to do damage. But I've had some trouble with my orbit timers as a result, unfortunately, but that's an issue. And with this really hot, dry weather, it's been a real issue with the weed mats being down, really cooking things. But there are some tricks if you use the really good 5-layer weed mats with the underside having some fibers that act as an insulator. The transmission of heat from the outer surface, the surface that we see down here, is dissipated by the time it gets to the plant, as long as you have the underside touching the plant. Before, we've lost plants because of touching it. Now, of course, when the plants get pretty darn large, then they can fall over with the wind, they can land on it, the leaves can lay on it, and there is going to be some thermal conduction and damage to the cells of those leaves, but hopefully the rest of the plants will do well. And so we'll see just each week how everything's going. When I compared this to our non-matted areas, they actually did just as well, as long as we had the drip tapes underneath the weed mat and we had the insulation up against the plant if any part of the weed mat touched the plants. I like to have as little soil exposed as possible, because weeds will end up there competing with the plants that we have desirable, that we desire to have rather. So those are just a few of my observations, but we'll see how the season goes. I'm really concerned. This is really way too early for so little water, so little rain, and so much heat. And again, I lived in Tucson, Arizona for a year, and I know this is not like an arid climate like that, where the temperatures are often in the 90s or over 100. But for a cold temperate climate, this is pretty unusual. So 2016 we had a really bad drought, and 2014 or 2013 as well. I have to go back and look at them. But this one could beat those ones because it's starting so early. So I'm a bit concerned. So if you thought the video was of value, please give us a thumbs up. Be sure to leave a comment, ask questions. I'm always happy to interact with you. It's really very enjoyable. And by all means, folks, stay safe and enjoy yourselves. Take care now. Bye-bye.